Welcome to the Explainer. So if you've ever stared at a massive spreadsheet until your eyes literally blurred over and you completely lost focus, yeah, we've all been there. You know the struggle of trying to decipher raw statistics. Well, today we're tackling that challenge head-on. We are going to master the visual foundations of statistical data and mapping, and we're turning all that noise into crystal clear insight.
Okay, let's dive into this. On one hand, you've got the overwhelming headache of raw numbers. Endless rows and columns that human brains simply are not wired to process quickly. It's just exhausting. But compare that to the intuitive clarity of visual storytelling. It's this elegant, incredibly powerful solution to our data-induced headaches, and it is going to completely change how you look at information.
Think of today's agenda as your ultimate data storyteller's tool belt. We're going to cover 1. The power of visuals. 2. Categories and distributions. 3. Proportions versus precision. 4. Tracking trends over time. 5. Mapping regional patterns. And finally, 6. The story in the data.
The power of visuals.
Let's establish a baseline truth right out of the gate. Statistics absolutely do not have to be an intimidating blur of digits. The entire goal here is transforming raw numbers into intuitive visual formats. It makes the data vastly easier to interpret and, crucially, to communicate to others. Whether you're doing rigorous academic research or honestly just trying to quickly understand an article in the morning news, translating data into a visual language is just an essential technique. It takes the abstract and makes it immediately concrete.
Section 2. Categories and distributions. So, let's pull out the first tool in our belt, the trusty bar chart. And this brilliantly illustrates how we handle discrete data. By using rectangular bars, we can perfectly compare separate, distinct buckets. Whether you're comparing sales across different product lines or looking at populations state by state, the height of the bar instantly tells your brain who's winning, who's losing, and what the primary differences are.
Now, we really got to be careful not to mix up our tools here. While we use bar charts for discrete data, we rely on histograms for continuous data. Recognizing this subtle but absolutely vital difference prevents you from using the wrong tool. They might look like visual cousins, but they serve entirely different analytical purposes.
So what's the big difference? Well, a histogram visually represents a frequency distribution of continuous data. Instead of separate categories like apples and oranges, a histogram maps out a continuous flow. Think of age ranges from 0 to 100 or a full spectrum of income levels. It elegantly maps out exactly how frequently those continuous values pop up within your dataset.
Section 3. Proportions versus precision.
Now, what's really interesting here is a choice every data storyteller eventually has to make. Do you need the big picture, or do you need mathematical precision? Circular charts, like pie charts or donut charts, instantly reveal percentage shares. By showing proportions as slices of a whole, your brain just immediately grasps the hierarchy. It's incredibly useful for things like budget allocations across marketing, R&D, and operations. You don't need to do any mental math, you just instantly know which slice is taking up the most room.
But sometimes, a visual trend alone just isn't enough. So the crucial point is, when exact numbers trump the big picture, you swap to a table. By organizing data into rigid rows and columns, a table allows for precise side-by-side comparison. If you need to know the exact dollar amount for the marketing budget down to the literal cent, the table is for sure the tool you need.
Section 4. Tracking trends over time. Because data isn't always static, right? Let's move along and see how this builds. When we need to visualize dynamic information that changes as the clock ticks forward, we use line charts. Connecting specific data points with continuous lines makes them the absolute perfect tool for showing trends over time. Whether you're tracking highly volatile stock prices, measuring monthly rainfall, or mapping out rising literacy rates across decades, that connected line gives you an immediate, continuous visual narrative of progress, decline, or stagnation.
Okay, so that covers our standard graphs. But I want to pose a vital question to you. What if your data has a geographical location tied to it? How do we visualize where things are happening in the real world rather than just what or when?
Section 5. Mapping regional patterns.
The answer lies in geographic representation. We are stepping away from standard X and Y axes and literally mapping abstract information onto the real world. We use tools like population density maps to see where people are heavily clustered, climate maps to track massive weather systems, or thematic maps to visualize things like literacy or poverty levels across different regions.
This kind of spatial visualization helps us instantly spot regional patterns and disparities that a basic spreadsheet would just completely hide from view.
Section 6. The story in the data.
We've explored the tools, but why does mastering this tool belt actually matter? Because when we use these graphical tools correctly, we make data interpretation highly intuitive, and that intuition empowers people. It empowers policymakers to draft effective legislation, it empowers researchers to accurately prove their hypotheses, and educators to share complex knowledge effortlessly. But most importantly, it empowers you to critically understand the statistical forces shaping your world.
The ultimate goals of using these tools, the real mission of any data storyteller, can be boiled down to 3 key actions. 1. Identify trends. 2. Spot relationships between different variables. And 3. Find the anomalies that break the expected pattern. When you hit those 3 steps, you solve the problem of raw data overload, and you uncover clear, actionable truth.
So, I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought. Next time you see a chart out in the wild, don't just passively consume it. Ask yourself, what story is the data actively telling? And maybe more importantly, what anomalies might it be hiding? Keep your visual tool belt handy, keep questioning the numbers, and you will always find the story. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.